Well, thank you, sir. And it's precisely because of my thoughts of the young people of Jersey that I'll be voting in support of this proposition and playing what will be my small part in helping to end a policy that is failing them and failing the island as a whole. And I simply cannot understand how, after years of failure of this policy, not just in Jersey but other parts of the world, how we can maintain support for a system that isn't working. So the Deputy Miles spoke of her cognitive dissonance in her position on this, and I have to say, having listened to her excellent speech and the logical way that she reached her conclusion in it, I didn't detect any of that cognitive dissonance, but I have detected a significant amount of it in the three speakers that have spoken against this proposition, whose conclusion is that cannabis is bad. Therefore, we should make the situation for those who are using it even worse by criminalising them, something which, as of yet, has done nothing to stop them taking it in the first place. It's not an education-based response. It's not a health-based response. It is to simply say, if you're doing this, you will have a criminal conviction thrown at you and all of the consequences that arise from that, which don't lead to anything positive. I was amused by Deputy Wilson's suggestion that we were potentially going to make this decision without data, and that we ought to be seeking to have more data in order to make a reasons decision on this. I think there's two problems with that. The first is that there are plenty of countries around the world that are already doing it, so I don't see why Jersey ought to reinvent the wheel in that sense. But secondly, and here's the major flaw in her position, sir, we want to gather data on how people who are currently engaging in criminal activity are behaving. Well, I'm sure they'll all be queuing up to volunteer their experiences, knowing that they'll be admitting to committing criminal offences. Of course, you cannot collect that data because nobody's going to step forward and volunteer it because of the consequences that could otherwise arise from it. But where I think is the worst inconsistency in the response against this proposition, about talking about the negative health effects that cannabis can and does have on people, is how this standard seems not to apply to all of the other substances that are freely available to us that can have a devastating impact on people's lives. Sir, alcohol can be extremely dangerous and have horrendous health effects on those who either consume too much of it or those who are of whatever natural predisposition that it has a significantly bad effect on them. Of course, most people consume alcohol completely responsibly and can enjoy it and won't suffer negative health effects as a result of it because they do so in moderation. But excessive use of it can be devastating, can cause all sorts of diseases. It can obviously severely impact on your judgment and how you behave when you drink too much of it. And some people, of course, suffer from alcoholism and all of the consequences that leads to as well. And yet, the moment you turn 18, you can go to any shop you like and buy as much of it as you like and can afford and consume it as quickly as you like with very little regulation of that. And for that alone, you won't be criminalised. So that is clearly a gross inconsistency in approach there, which doesn't seem to, those who say that we have the right approach on cannabis don't seek to impose that same approach on alcohol. That to me is cognitive dissonance. So sugar is bad for you. If you consume too much of that, you can become obese and you can have all sorts of health effects as a result of that too. But we wouldn't, of course, criminalise anyone who baked cakes and put sugar in them, or Jersey Wonders, of course. That would be an absurd thing to propose. They obviously have very good effects on people as well. So the proposition as it now stands, having been amended, and in particular the amendment by the Council of Ministers that has added a list of other considerations that ought to be put in this before saying, as well as saying, that proposals will come back to the Assembly, means that the decision we make today is not one which we can say at this moment in time is a flawed decision or that will automatically lead to all of these unforeseen circumstances. Because if we vote for this proposition, we will not be decriminalising cannabis today will be taking the first step on the journey towards decriminalising it by agreeing in principle that the criminalisation of people who simply enjoy a joint from time to time in the same way that many of us enjoy a pint of beer or a glass of wine is not a sensible approach when it comes to harm reduction or dealing with those who have issues with substance use. It's to agree that basic point of principle and then ask the government to do the necessary work that it needs to do to come up with some detailed framework that includes all of those other issues like how the substance is dealt with in the presence of children, how it's dealt with if people are trying to consume it before driving, and how social supply might work, and all of those other issues, which will come back to the Assembly in a detailed form, allowing us at that point to determine whether that framework does resolve those issues to our satisfaction, or whether at that point it can be thrown out. This proposition today is merely to take the first step in that journey and agree that the practice of possessing small amounts of cannabis, perhaps growing some of it your own, and smoking it or using it should not be a criminal offence, because criminalising it, as we can see from all of the other jurisdictions around the world and in Jersey, is not putting off people using it. It's not convincing people to step forward and engage with the authorities if they get caught up in other negative aspects of the illegal drug trade around that. It simply takes up time and resources and puts people, many of whom will be moderate, responsible users of cannabis in the same way that most people are moderate and responsible consumers of alcohol, puts their lives through a whole load of extra hassle that doesn't lead to any benefits to them. So my manifesto said that I would support the decriminalisation of cannabis. I wholeheartedly do that, and thank Deputy Coles for bringing forward a proposition that seeks to take us in that direction. And I hope members will take the opportunity today, having examined what is happening in the world around us, that the move towards decriminalisation is inevitable, and if this Assembly says no to it, it'll come back in the next one and will probably be accepted at that point as well. But it enables us to take hold of that journey today, do that work to come up with the more detailed proposals for how it will work, and we'll get there eventually anyway, and sooner rather than later, sir, because in the meantime, those who are being forced through the criminal justice system for using cannabis are, in my belief, suffering an injustice that they don't deserve and for no public benefit as a result of it.
Deputy Hall.
Thank you.